Alrighty, Andre. So let's get going here. This is like my second time recording this, second or third time, so screwed up at a few points. But anyways, let's get started here with the Skybox terrain. All the other models, everything is here in model tools. That way it can be passed through as a graphics, just a graphics object. Just made it easier to put it into model tools, make it under new model, that kind of whole ordeal. Just new model, model, yeah. So. Uh, so then we got the box, we got the repeated textures, then we'll have the 6 faces for the box, then we'll have the sphere, then the pyramid, I believe. And then after the pyramid is the skybox. Then after the skybox is going to be the plane. Then after that is the terrain as well. So, and that's all being done here in Model Tools. And then in Model H, just added everything into the enums. And then I actually made different constructors for model as well, based on whichever one we're using too. So that just makes it easier that way. And then next, you want to see if it is aesthetically pleasing, which I think mine's pretty cool. I'm not gonna have any fog in there right now, just because it's easier to do this and then show like that fog is working. Even though it's not being called, but it is set in the HLSL. So, yeah. And then while we're here, we'll also talk about the multiple lights. The terrain. The terrain I did not get fully implemented right now. I just have the Y vector pointing up, mainly because where the cottage is right now is mostly flat. However, if I had more time to do it, I would go through the calculations. I just didn't get around to it. The way I thought you would do it is you would basically just take whatever the triangle is at that point. You would take the you would get the vector by subtracting each one. So you subtract like v1 by v2, and then you get the vector going in between those two, and you do that for both sides of the triangle. And then you would take the cross product of that and normalize it, and that should give you the face normal coming out of there. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get around to it. So, and then the you say the light effect should make sense. So I have mine set up. I got a right up here is this little guy is the North Star. I honestly just put a point up there. You said the skybox should not, in general, interact with light sources. It kind of confused me to some extent. For some strange reason, I just got confused as to why it shouldn't, because I thought if you had the lighting that it would basically just make it black. But yeah, so anyways, got the little North Star there. The other one is going to be a spotlight. I only have 2 of them. However, I can put a third one in there if I wanted to. It just would not make sense for the final scene. However, I will show this to you right now that I can put one in. So, sorry for the squeaky mouse. Right here in the lights, this guy here is the one that's not doing anything. However, if I put 50 on there, it's basically just like whammo. Yep. Whammo. Just all over the place. Specifically, you could just see it like up around the skybox again. Even on the pyramid that's going around too. Excuse me, you could see that as well. However, I'm going to take that off just because it does not look very pleasing. And then I just showed you the multiple sources, whether they're point sources or spotlight. At least one light source should be moving. This broke on me within the last about half hour. I don't know why, but I had it being placed almost like a spotlight going around the cottage, and it was reflecting off the planes of the forest itself. Yeah, but it broke for some reason within the last 15 minutes, like I said, and it just really perplexed me. and I didn't understand it. It was working the whole entire time up until then. So it gave it a pretty cool ambiance too within the scene itself. And then you say some elements should be moving to better showcase lighting effects. So I have the pyramid. The pyramid I thought would be cool because, well, to be honest, I watched a documentary about pyramids maybe about 3 or 4 days ago, and they talked about like if aliens made pyramids or whatever. It was actually pretty interesting. But anyways, so figured to fly around kind of like an alien spaceship. So here you can't really see whether the lights are being used properly. Well, you can from the bottom, a little bit from the bottom, I guess you could say. However, I'm going to throw the giant light back on, and with the giant light you should be able to see it then, because the giant light should be like right next to the pyramid basically. So, yep, you can see it's significantly brighter, and as it circles, the texture will fade away based on how bright it gets, all that good stuff. So, you can see that the lighting does work on the pyramid too. So, the pyramid one was kind of wonky. Fortunately, thankfully, I should say, I did that during the homework time that you wanted us to do that. You want to make judicious use of the fog effect. The fog effect I actually was really happy with. I had to set it a few times in order to get it to work, and that's just because the way each thing is scaled, you had to send it a few different times to make sure that the proper range as you zoomed out was the fog was overlaying everything and taking over. You wanted to make sure that that was happening at the proper time. So, but let's run it with fog. So, yep, got the fog here. Personally think the fog looks pretty cool, and as you go farther back, the fog slowly takes over the whole entire thing. I tried to make it as similar to the plane and the terrain specifically as possible. The car does also do the fog with it as well. So, yeah, I think the fog was the part that I felt made the scene a lot better. More that haunted Michael Myers kind of feel, which is what I was going for. So then we also have the pre-made models. Should include a minimum unit, include at minimum a unit box, a pyramid, and a sphere. The sphere I'll show you right now in the mirror right here. So I'm going to do it in wireframe, however. I'll show you it in wireframe because me and Ben were working on this, and for some reason the last windings right here really just screwed up for whatever reason, and couldn't seem to figure out what it was. But the sphere is going. We didn't try any textures or anything. We were actually having trouble getting a search with the mesh num whenever we ran it and all that good stuff. However, it's right there. I mean, we spent like 6 hours on this and really ticked us off. And then also, you saw the pyramid already within the main program. You saw the pyramid already. I'll show you a box. I actually put a little box on the side of the house, right you can't really, right here. So almost like a little storage thing. I thought I'd put it there. You can see it's got the repeating texture on there. If I wanted to do the repeating texture, and then I did not put a 6 face just because it did not make any sense. However, we made the 6 face before and every other homework, to be honest with you. So, you know, it's just one of those things that we've done it so many times at this point that just didn't seem fit, and it didn't fit the scene either, because I think the textures that were given were like a dice, and then the cube faces as well. But and I couldn't think of anything else that would just be a box that would be completely different on each side. So there is that. The pre-made models may also include flat plane skybox. Yeah, I showed you all of that. All these models should make use of the latest version of standard vertex. So I will show you that. All of them will use standard vertex in some way, shape, or form outside of the terrain, I believe. The terrain did not. So we have the standard and triangle, standard triangle, standard triangle, standard triangle, standard triangle, standard triangle. For the plane, standard triangle. And then, actually, no, it does make use of it. I'm sorry. Yeah, it does. So in the unit terrain, it does as well within here. So, and the only difference between actually having it in here and inside like the terrain model was you basically had to take off the ents or the standard vertex right there, just because it would reinitialize itself again and it pop up an error, so it should have been easy to catch. However, so next you want to take a look at the model class, and it should have constructors for pre-made models, models from files, and using arrays of standard vertex. Yep, and indices. So here I have all of the different variables that were needed to use to set equal to each other per constructor. In here I put all the enums within the pre-made models, so that way they can call. This guy here is the standard one. I believe that's the one you gave us right away. This one is for the flat plane, if I remember correctly, is the flat plane. This one is the terrain. This guy right here, there we go, is the terrain one, the terrain constructor. And then right here as well is going to be the one where you pass through the model name. Let me bring up the actual model CPP for you, give you a look at that. So yeah, this is the standard one you gave us. Load everything in. Here's the one with the model name. This is the one from the terrain. To be honest, it was basically copy and paste. There wasn't really much to it outside of just doing it basically, and then you had to make different integers to set equal to everything, so that way when you run it, you just ran it through here. Now the one thing I did do differently is I actually just threw this onto here, and I just ran it through as like the big one you gave us, just because these are also initialized to zeros as well in the header right here. So I have them being defaulted to 0, so that way if they're not used, they're not affecting anything at all. So but yeah, so everything's running through there. Next you wanted to render the model as a whole or as a specified mesh. That I can show you as well, because the car is only going to run one thing, as well as the cube repeated will only run one thing. However, then you look at the cottage. I'm going to have 4 different textures at one time actually running. So there is that. So it's got the different meshes depending on how many is needed, that kind of thing. And then in the, where am I at here? The Skybox class. To have a proper model build to scale. So the Skybox here, if I chose to, could go to a scale if I wanted to. I actually just scaled the matrix down here in the Skybox. Where is it? So I used a matrix, and then I just ran this scale through that matrix to show. It was just a little easier for me that way, and then you just set the matrix that way, or set the world that way. And then you have the, however, zone graphic object. Yep. So got the graphic object, taking in the texture light pointer, taking in the model pointer from the pSkybox, which contains the unit skybox, which then holds weight to go to the create unit skybox in model tools. Then you just set the sky texture, and then just change it to purple. I put it to material purple because I thought purple looked really cool. Terrain model. The terrain here is also being passed through as a graphic object, and it does do these specific repeats if you want to. So the other thing as well, which one did I put as the repeat? Let me just make sure. Okay. So if I make this 1, 1, it should have like huge grass blades on there, just because it's not being mapped multiple times along with everything. Yep. So it's kind of got those huge grass blades on there. You can see them right down here. Sorry, the camera's kind of wonky. You can see that guy right there. And then if I throw it into 10, excuse me. If I throw it into 10 here, then it'll have the texture going across and down 10 times. So you can actually kind of see the lines right along here as to where it happens to. But it looks significantly better, and also the grass looks a lot smaller too. So that's the biggest difference I noticed from it. And then within the terrain model, the other thing I will show you, because you wanted to do normals, I think I might have explained it, I'm not sure. But for right now, I just have 0, 1, 0 on there, honestly. I didn't get a chance to go around and calculate all of it. However, the way you do it, I know you have it up here, but even I thought about it. For each triangle, you would basically take the difference between, like, let's say vertex 1 and then vertex 2 would give you the vector the vector 1 and vector 2, and you take the difference of those two, you get the vector going in between the two, and then you do the same for the other side, and then you would take the cross product of those two vectors that you got from the differences of each side, and you cross product those, normalize it, and then that should give you the normal coming out. I just ran out of time to do it, and it kind of upsets me because I do know how to do it. The terrain class, yep, you just wanted it to act as a graphics object, managing pointers and all that, and it does do that. So you can see, got the model, then we got the terrain right here, graph terrain, being passed through with the text light pointer, and then the terrain pointer too, and then the setting the texture with the grass and all that good stuff. So next thing you want to see are the shader classes and HLSL files. You want the color and texture based. I didn't use any color. However, I'll show you the color. We'll just do simple 3D. So I got them all here. There was no need for me to use them. I just used everything texture wise. So in here, just got all the different lighting, the diffuse factors, the calculations, the different point lights. Also, this is where you have the registers and the C buffers and all that for the multiple point lights, for the multiple light sources. And then as you come farther down, it's just you compute everything, compute the spotlights, the point lights. And then down in the pixel shader, you actually have to redo it. Basically, for each point light, you have to recompute it to make sure that it is, to make sure that the data is being done for that specific point light that you want. And then down here, I'm doing everything for the fog as well. And actually, I did forget to show you, since we're on the idea of fog, I'll show you how fog is not being done if I were to take it out completely. So within the constructor, basically just make fog data, have the color of it, set it to transparent, 000 is the transparent vector, and then update the sub-resource with the context. Just update the context for it. So, and then next, implement fog with the pixel shader. So I showed you that. Implement spherical fog for user given parameters. I did show you that. Sense a shader will control many settings. The user blah 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 blah. Just create clear shader default values for all settings. If no fog. Okay, yeah, I showed you that how the no visible fog is affected. Graphic object classes corresponding to shaders for color, texture, and their light version. So the graphic object, I have all of them in here as well. Just use the text. I just use the text light again. So in here it's plopping through, giving me the mesh text or the mesh material, depending on, or both of them at the same time, I should say. It's initializing them to null or to be transparent for the material. Then you want to delete it. Make sure you don't have any arrays, pointers, all that good stuff just lying around. And then for the texture, just going through setting the texture per mesh, doing a check on the assert, have this texture set equal to that mesh text, and then same thing for the material. And then within the render, just looping through, making sure it's set in the sampler, the world of material, all that good stuff. Mirror was interesting. Mirror I was not able to fully get. Let me just go all the way back here, because I used mirror also. I used mirror in order to show the sphere. If it'll load. So, but yeah, so it's working. The only thing that is not working is the lights are not properly showing up. But yeah, for the most part, the mirror is working. Didn't implement it into the final scene, obviously. But yeah, so I got the mirror. I did not do any of the compute and give access to, yeah, so everything but the lights basically. Then DXApp, basically just want to see how nice and pretty it looks, because it looks so pretty. That is the wrong file. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. So yeah, there's in a demo, just loading all the files. Everything done. It looks so nice. I remember the first week I basically almost wanted to, like, I don't know, kill myself because of how much code was in here, and now it looks so nath and pretty. But yeah. So it's been a fun ride and interesting, so we'll see how it goes. So